Now we come to another sutta, which is quite a good and important sutta. The Buddha said, monks, these 4 good thoroughbred steeds are found existing in the world. What for? In this case, monks, we have a certain good thoroughbred steed, which at the very sight of the shadow of the goat stick is stirred, feels agitation, thinking, what task, I wonder, will the trainer set me today? What return can I make him? Here, monks, we have such a steed, and this is the first sort of good thoroughbred steed found existing in the world. I'll just stop here to explain about the best type of horse is the one when the trainer comes and he sees the sight of the shadow of the goat stick, he feels agitated, he's stirred to action. What is this goat stick? This goat stick is one, it's like a sharp instrument to prick the horse. Sometimes the horse is stubborn, he won't listen. So you have this sharp instrument, you prick his skin, sometimes can prick deeper. So that is the goat stick. Then the Buddha said, then again, monks, we may have a certain good thoroughbred steed which is not stirred at the mere sight of the goat stick, feels no agitation, but when his coat is pricked with the goat, he is stirred, feels agitation, thinking, what task, I wonder, will the trainer set me today, etc. This is the second sort of good thoroughbred steed. Then again, monks, we may have a certain good thoroughbred steed which is not stirred at the sight of the goat stick, nor yet when his coat is pricked with the goat, but when his flesh is pierced, he is stirred, he feels agitation, thinking, what task, I wonder, will the trainer set me today, etc. This is the third sort of good thoroughbred steed. Once more, monks, we may have a good thoroughbred steed which is not stirred, feels no agitation at the sight of the goat stick, or when his coat is pricked, or yet when his flesh is pierced with the goat stick. But when he is pierced to the very bone, he is stirred, feels agitation, thinking, what task, I wonder, will the trainer set me today? What return can I make him? Here we have such a good thoroughbred steed. This is the fourth sort of good thoroughbred steed. Thus, monks, these 4 good thoroughbred steeds are found existing in the world. I'll just stop here for a while to recapitulate. These are the 4 types of good horses. The first one, he sees the owner, the trainer coming with the goat stick, or just the sight of the shadow of the goat stick is enough to stir him into action. The second one, he has to, when the trainer comes with the goat stick, he's not stirred, but the trainer has to poke him, then he goes into action. The third one, you poke him also not enough. You have to poke until the flesh is pierced, then he'll go into action. The fourth one, even that is not enough, but he has to be pierced until the goat goes into the bone, then only he'll get into action. So these are the 4 good thoroughbred steeds. Then the Buddha said, just in the same way, monks, these 4 good thoroughbred men are found existing in the world. What for? In this case, monks, here we may have a certain good thoroughbred man who hears it said that in such and such a village or town is a woman or a man afflicted or dead, that means sick or dead. Thereat he is stirred, he feels agitation. Thus agitated, he strictly applies himself. Thus applied, he both realizes in his own person the supreme truth and sees it by penetrating it with wisdom. Just as monks, that good thoroughbred steed on seeing the shadow of the goat stick is stirred, feels agitation. Even so, using this figure do I speak of this good thoroughbred man. Such in this case is the good thoroughbred man. Again, monks, here we may have a good thoroughbred man who does not hear it said that in such and such a village or town is a woman or man sick or dead, but with his own eyes he sees such. Thereupon he is stirred, he feels agitation, etc. Just as monks, that good thoroughbred steed on having his coat pricked with the goat stick is stirred. Even so, using this figure do I speak of this good thoroughbred man. This is the second sort. Then again, monks, here we may have a certain good thoroughbred man who does not hear it said, nor yet with his own eyes sees a woman or a man sick or dead, but his own kinsman or blood relation is afflicted, sick or dead. Thereupon he is stirred, just as monks that good thoroughbred steed on having his flesh pierced is stirred. Even so, using this figure, do I speak of this good thoroughbred man. This is the third sort of good thoroughbred man. Once more, monks, here we may have a good thoroughbred man who neither hears it said, nor yet with his own eyes sees, nor is his own kinsman or blood relation sick or dead. But he himself is stricken with painful bodily feelings, grievous, sharp, racking, distracting, discomforting, that drain the life away. Thereat he is stirred, he feels agitation. Being so stirred, he strictly applies himself. Thus applied, he both realizes with his own person the supreme truth and sees it by penetrating it with wisdom. Just as monks, that good thoroughbred steed, on being pierced to the very bone, is stirred, feels agitation. Even so, using this figure, do I speak of this good thoroughbred man. Of such a sort, monks, is the good thoroughbred man in this case. This is the fourth sort. These monks are the four sorts of thoroughbreds among men found existing in the world. This is quite a good sutta. It tells us when a person is ready to renounce and cultivate the spiritual life. The first one is the best. The person, because of past practice of the holy life, in the past life. So when he comes back to this human world, he hears it said that such and such a woman or a man is sick or dead. Just by hearing it, he sees impermanence. He realizes impermanence and dukkha. So he is moved to renounce and practice the holy life. Then he realizes the truth. If you look into the Theragatha and the Therigatha, the verses of the Arahants, there are some very gifted people, very, very special people. Some even 7-year-old child, the Buddha sees that person straight away. The Buddha recognizes, the Buddha persuade, and also because the parents allow, then the Buddha tells his disciple to quickly let this young man go forth, this young kid, 7-year-old. And sometimes they renounce in the morning, just shave the head in the morning. By the night, the person is already an arahant. These are real thoroughbreds among men because of past cultivation. So this one is the first type. He just hears it said only that a person is sick or dead, and he feels agitated. And just like the Buddha, but the Buddha falls into the second category. Second category is a person who sees with his own eyes a sick person or a dead person, and then he is stirred and he wants to renounce and practice. That's why we see that the Buddha, he had such a life of luxury when he was young. He had such a good life. And yet, because of past cultivation, past realization of the truths, that's why I believe personally that the Buddha was already an Arya, probably a Sotapanna or a Sakadagami from the previous life, That's why when he was young, even from young, he was not very interested in the worldly life. And in spite of being surrounded by female slaves and a lot of maids, etc., and the Buddha said in one of the suttas that during the winter or rainy season, he would be left alone in his mansion, surrounded by female slaves, no men around, all female slaves to attend to him. So he had such sensual pleasures. But in spite of all this, his heart was not in the world, So when he saw a sick man, a dead man, an old man, etc., he decided to renounce. So there's something from his memory sort of stirring him. So that is the second type of person. The third one, more people fall into this category. When somebody whom you love very much is sick or dead, and it grieves you so much that you want to renounce either your child or your own child or your spouse, your husband or wife or your father or mother, somebody very close to you, brother or sister, is sick or dead. And then you decide to renounce. And the fourth one is one who, even when the close relative is sick or dead, he's not ready to renounce, but he himself is stricken with a dreadful disease, one that is draining his life away. For example, the person gets cancer. When you hear that you have cancer and that you know that your time is limited, then this person might decide to forget about the worldly life and renounce and cultivate. But then there are many people who are not thoroughbred steeds or thoroughbred men, and even when they themselves are sick and afflicted with cancer, etc., they still don't think of renouncing. Those are very common people in the world. Some people even on their deathbed, they don't realize that there is a path out of samsara, that if they practice the holy path, there is a way out of suffering. And because they have not come across the Dhamma, they have not had the good fortune of hearing the Dhamma, so even until the moment that they are dying away, they are passing away, they still don't have the thought of cultivating the holy life to get out of samsara, get out of the round of rebirths. Then we come to the next sutta, 4.12.114. Monks possessed of four qualities, a Raja's elephant is worthy of the Raja, a possession of the Raja is reckoned an attribute of a Raja. What are the four qualities? Herein monks, a Raja's elephant is a listener, a destroyer, a bearer, a goer. And how monks is a Raja's elephant a listener? In this case, monks, whatever task the trainer of elephants imposes on him, whether he has performed it before or not, the Raja's elephant makes that his object, gives attention to it, considers it with all his mind, with ready ear listens thereto. Thus monks is a Raja's elephant a listener. And how monks is a Raja's elephant a destroyer? In this case, monks, a Raja's elephant entering battle, destroys elephant and Mahout, horse and rider, chariot and driver and footman. Thus is he a destroyer. And how monks is a Raja's elephant a bearer? In this case, monks, a Raja's elephant entering battle bears the blows of spear, sword, arrow and axe, and also the din of drum and kettle drum, of conch, tam-tam and other noise. Thus he is a bearer. And how monks is a Raja's elephant a goer? In this case, monks, a Raja's elephant, in whatever direction the trainer of elephants turns him, whether he has gone there before or not, there he quickly goes. Thus he is a goer. So possessed of these four qualities, monks, a Raja's elephant is worthy of the Raja, a possession of the Raja is reckoned an attribute of a Raja. In like manner, monks, possessed of four qualities, a monk is worshipful, worthy of gifts and offerings, of salutations with clasped hands, a field of merit unsurpassed for the world. What for? Herein monks, a monk is a listener, a destroyer, a bearer and a goer. And how is a monk a listener? In this case, when Dhamma Vinaya is set forth by a Tathagata, a monk makes that his object, gives attention to it, considers it with all his mind, with ready ear listens to Dhamma. Thus is a monk a listener. And how is a monk a destroyer? In this case, a monk does not admit sensual thinking that has arisen. He abandons, restrains, makes an end of it, forces it not to recur. So also with regard to malicious thinking, cruel or harmful thinking, he does not admit evil, unprofitable states that occur from time to time. He abandons them, restrains, makes an end of them, forces them not to recur. Thus he is a destroyer. And how is a monk a bearer? In this case, a monk bears heat, cold, hunger, thirst, contact of flies, mosquitoes, wind and sun and creeping things. He bears abusive, pain-causing ways of speech. He submits to painful bodily feelings, grievous, sharp, racking, distracting and discomforting that drain the life away. Thus is a monk a bearer. And how is a monk a goer? In this case, a monk quickly goes where in this long journey he has never gone before, namely to the tranquilization of the conditioners, sankhara, to the forsaking of every basis of rebirth, to the destruction of craving, to passionlessness, to ending, to nibbana. Thus is a monk a goer. Possessed of these four qualities, a monk is worshipful, worthy of gifts and offerings, of salutations with clasped hands, a field of merit unsurpassed for the world. In this sutta number 114, the Buddha compared a Raja's elephant to a monk. This is one of the suttas where the Buddha uses this comparison of a naga, an elephant, with a monk. This word naga denotes an elephant. It also means snake spirit, snake deva, a deva with a snake body. It also is used for a great being, a noble person. In this sutta, the Buddha said that a Raja and an elephant is worthy of a Raja if it possesses four qualities, namely that it is a listener, a destroyer, a bearer, and a goer. And similarly, if a monk possessed four qualities, then he is worshipful, worthy of gifts and offerings, worthy of salutations with clasped hands, a field of merit unsurpassed for the world. And these four qualities are that the monk is a listener, a destroyer, a bearer, and a goer. And the Buddha said, in this case, being a listener means that the monk listens to Dhammavuddho, the teachings of the Buddha, the discourses, and the disciplinary conduct, the disciplinary code set forth by the Buddha. And a Buddha's disciple is known as a savaka. The Buddha called his disciples savakas. Savaka literally means a listener, a hearer, one who listens to the Buddha's teachings. And so we can see that listening, learning the Buddha's teachings is very important. Another word that is mentioned quite often in the discourses is bahu-sacha, which means much learning. Much learning meaning much learning of the Dhamma, Vinaya, and which means much knowledge of the teachings of the Buddha. So this is one of the much learning, much knowledge of the Dhamma is one of the keystones, foundation of the spiritual path. And the second quality is that the monk is a destroyer, which means that he destroys sensual thinking, malicious thinking, and cruel or harmful thinking. These are the wrong thoughts that should be destroyed by a monk. And the third is that the monk is a bearer. He bears heat and cold, hunger, thirst, contact with flies, mosquitoes, wind and sun, creeping things. Physical discomfort is to be expected for a renunciant. And the Buddha always encouraged monks to go into seclusion, to live up in the hills or in the forests or in caves, etc. Luxury is one of the obstacles to the spiritual path, and it's always discouraged by the Buddha. It is also mentioned here that the monk submits to painful bodily feelings, grievous, sharp, racking, distracting, and discomforting, that drain the life away. So here we see that when painful bodily feelings arise which drain the life away, the monk is supposed to bear it, to continue to live, to practice the holy life. In other words, even for anyone, if such feelings arise, it is better if we have not completed the goal, the aim of the holy life, that we bear such grievous pains and so that we can continue to practice and try to achieve the aim of the holy life, which is the ending of the round of rebirths. And finally, the monk is a goer. He goes to where he's never been before in this long journey of samsara, the round of rebirths, namely to the ending of every basis for rebirth, the destruction of craving, to Nibbana. So, possessed of these four qualities, such a monk is worthy of gifts and offerings, of salutations with clasped hands, a field of merit unsurpassed for the world. Now we come to Sutta number 4.12.115. The Buddha said, monks, there are these four occasions. What for? There is, monks, the occasion when action is unpleasant and unprofitable to the doer. That when action is unpleasant but profitable to the doer. That when action is pleasant but unprofitable to the doer. And the occasion when action is both pleasant and profitable to the doer. Now, monks, in the first case, in a case when action is both unpleasant and unprofitable to the doer, one deems action inadvisable for both reasons, for it is both unpleasant and unprofitable. Then again, in the second instance, that is when action is unpleasant but profitable, one may know who is a fool and who a wise man in the matter of manly strength, manly vigor and energy. For monks, the fool has no such consideration as this. Though this is an occasion when action is unpleasant, yet it is one which brings profit. Accordingly, he does not act, and his inaction brings him loss. But the wise man thus considers, though this is an occasion when action is unpleasant, yet it brings profit to the doer. Accordingly, he acts and profit results. Now, in the third case, when action is pleasant but unprofitable, in this case also one may know who is a fool and who a wise man in the matter of manly strength, manly vigor and energy. For monks, the fool does not thus consider, though this act is pleasant, yet it brings loss. Accordingly, he acts and the result is loss. Whereas the wise man thus reflects, though this act is pleasant, yet its results bring loss. So he acts not, and the result is to his profit. Lastly, monks, in the case where action is both pleasant and profitable, one deems action advisable for both reasons, for it is both pleasant and profitable. That is why one deems action advisable. So these are the four occasions of action. Now these four occasions the Buddha mentioned. The first one, when action is unpleasant and unprofitable, is, for example, the case of the unbeneficial ascetic practices. During the Buddha's time, you had some external ascetics which practice all kinds of unbeneficial practices, like starving themselves, behaving like an animal, limiting their diet, etc., etc., which is unprofitable and unpleasant. So that should be avoided. The second case is when action is unpleasant but profitable. In this case, say like in the worldly sense, it could be like when a person works for his living, then it might be unpleasant, but he's hardworking, and because he's hardworking and he pleases the boss, then he's rewarded for it. Or, for example, a wife may please the husband, etc. And that is in the worldly sense. In the spiritual sense, it's like learning to keep the precepts, learning to meditate, learning to restrain oneself from unwholesome karma, All these, in the beginning for a beginner on the spiritual path, all these are difficult. Even learning to meditate is difficult. And so it is a little unpleasant. But because it is profitable, then we should do it. So in this case, the Buddha said, you can distinguish a wise man from a fool in this case. Because a fool, just because it is unpleasant, he would not want to do it. He will be lazy. And the third case is when action is pleasant but unprofitable. In this case, it is like gambling. Is pleasant but unprofitable. Drinking, womanizing, even hunting, fishing, being addicted to TV and video shows, etc. All these are pleasant activities, but it is unprofitable. And so, in this case also the Buddha said you can distinguish a fool from a wise man. A wise man would not do these things because it is unprofitable. And then in the last case is when action is both pleasant and profitable. For example, like when a person has attained samadhi, concentration, and he abides in samadhi, enjoys the bliss of jhana. This is not discouraged by the Buddha. In fact, the Buddha said it should be pursued, developed, and made much of. It is not to be feared. Why? Because it gives you the attainment of Sotapanna, Sakadagamin, Anagamin, and Arahanthood. This is mentioned in the Majjhima Nikaya and Digha Nikaya. So, these are the different types of actions. Now we come to 4.12.118. The Buddha said, monks, these 4 places are to be looked upon by a believing clansman with feelings of emotion. What for? At the thought, here the Tathagata was born, the believing clansman should look with feelings of emotion. At the thought, here the Tathagata was enlightened with supreme enlightenment. The believing clansman should look with feelings of emotion. At the thought, here the Tathagata sat rolling the supreme Dhamma wheel. The believing clansman should look with feelings of emotion. At the thought, here the Tathagata was utterly released in the Nibbana state, wherein no basis remains behind. The believing clansman should look with feelings of emotion. These are the 4 places. And this sutta refers to the 4 holy places in India, which Buddhists like to make a pilgrimage to. The first one where the Buddha was born, that is at Lumbini. And now I think they have decided Lumbini is in Nepal. And the second one where the Buddha was enlightened is Bodhigaya. And the third one where the Buddha sat rolling the Dhamma wheel, started to teach the Dhamma, that is in a place formerly called Isipatana. I think now it's called Sarnath. And then the last place is where the Buddha entered Parinibbana. That's the place called Kusinara. So if you have the opportunity, it'd be good to visit the holy places in India.